Welcome to a WTF YouTube live event. Lazza, how are you, buddy?
I'm all right. Are you all right?
I am. You're already looking a little tired from your jet lag is still affecting you, isn't
I
it?
woke up this morning at 5, so...
We're sitting on my front porch, by the way. We're not in London.
Can you not swing the camera around and show people what the view looks like? Because they should know.
It's spectacular. It's a spectacular day here in the American...
Spectacular?
Spectacular.
Spectacular view
Sound
there,
like
Larry.
George W. Bush. It's spectacular. It's spectacular. A spectacular day here in the American South. It's, what would you guess, maybe 65?
It's warmed up considerably, but it's now warm for... Since we arrived only 2 days ago, it's now warm for about 3 hours a day as opposed to 6 hours a day.
That's right.
So it's pretty brassically cold.
Great to be with you. Lawrence, this is his second trip to Alabama. Second time here. He loves the American South. We've been shooting guns off of my porch. We went out yesterday, did some skeet shooting. We haven't eaten any barbecue yet, but that's coming. I'm going to introduce him to American college football this particular Saturday. Will be a lot of fun. Going to some honky tonks. You name it, we're kind of doing it. His fiancee, Lizzie, lovely woman, she's here.
We should get
with
us
us
come
as
out.
well.
We should get us.
We
come
should
out.
get the ladies to come out here and join us. I'm not sure that they will, but we can try that. Ranger is sitting here on the floor right beside us. His ears pricked up because he knows that I'm talking about him. And we're going to take your questions.
And Larry was in charge of lunch, so I'm eating a bag of biltong.
This is true. I don't really do any cooking. So I just told him go into the refrigerator and see what you want.
But the good news
I should also say he's high maintenance. I mean, he doesn't eat cheese. I mean, what the hell is wrong with somebody
good news was,
who doesn't eat cheese? I had leftover pizza, homemade leftover pizza that I made last night, but this guy picks all the cheese off of it. I mean, it makes no sense, but okay. So it's your fault that I didn't have anything in there for you other than...
biltong, and I found a blue moon, so life is looking good.
So things are going well, but we're happy to take your questions and to talk to you about the end of the world as we know it, as we're rapidly approaching the November election. Talk about things in Britain, what's happening there. I mean, there are just all kinds of things that we can talk about. We certainly find plenty to talk about amongst ourselves. I don't know what you think, but we think we're very clever.
I learned something from so I'm not going to agree with this final point. When I wanted to be an actor, my father said to me, if you want to be a good actor, the best type of actor, the first thing you must do is understand that your audience is a lot smarter than you are. and you will succeed if you show your audience respect. So Larry can sit there going on about how wonderful he is, and I will go, I won't.
Well, we want to take your questions. Let us know when the questions start coming in, Jonathan, and we can respond to you as an audience. But what do you think, as an outsider to this country? What do you think is going to happen in November with the election? Who's going to win, in your opinion?
Trump's going to win, thank God. And as we were talking about a little bit earlier, it definitely is the will of God, without wishing to be too sort of Bible bashy about it. It is the will of God that Trump wins. There's only so much nastiness we can put up with as human beings, because human beings are sort of, we're told, aren't we, that we're fallen people. So the only thing that revivifies us is hope, and the only thing that the left take away is hope.
Yeah.
So we can only live in a world with some hope in it, and I've sensed from all the people I speak to, I've just been watching some stuff. They've got some, I think it's either Fox or maybe even CNN, outside the early voting booths in Arizona, and no one is openly admitting to voting for Kamala Harris. So,
well, again, bear in mind that Democrats do their voting between 2 and 4 a.m.
Yeah, sudden spikes.
Never in person. They send in their ballots in gym bags.
But now that everyone is stoned, now that Kamala, whatever, sorry for getting it wrong and being racist, Kamala, they might all, her initiative to get every black man stoned in America and given $20,000, he might not have a reason to vote.
You know, there's no demographic they care about less than black voters.
Yeah,
They're pandering, absolutely pandering to illegals. That's the vote they want. They want people who are not legal citizens of this country and not legal voters to be the voters, and hence the reason they're using all of FEMA's budget to bring them into the country and settle them and give them cell phones and monthly stipends. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's going on here. Certainly been going on in your country.
It did cross my mind because I've got a couple of friends who are pensioners, and it did cross our minds that it might be a good idea to take some pensioners to France, get them into a dinghy, and then bring them back to their own country to claim asylum in it.
It's claimed that they're Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
And then everyone will treat them really well. We got some questions?
I got a couple comments. Eve of the West.
I don't want comments. We only want questions. Eve of the West, I know who that is. Let's hear what she has to say.
She said, "I can't wait to hear the trouble you two have gotten into."
Well, we've been shooting things. That's one thing.
I
We
have
haven't
no
burnt
left ear.
anything yet.
I have no left eardrum thanks to his 1930s Spanish antique shotguns, which, to be fair, are pretty amazing. But yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to.
That's his fault. It's not
from
my
it.
job to tell him that he needs to wear ear protection.
The worst thing is
I was
I've
wearing
got ear protection
when he was shooting.
in my own pockets.
And if it hadn't been for his fiancée, the lovely aforementioned Lizzie, he would have been shooting squirrels out of trees, but she didn't want him to do that. So he didn't.
She would cry if I killed. She ran over a squirrel once, and stopped and cried and gave it a burial ceremony.
Well, here in the South, we shoot things, we burn things, and we blow things up. It's just what we do. In London, you can't do that, but here you can.
Oh, you
before
can,
leave.
but you have to be Muslim.
Yeah,
You're allowed.
you're allowed to. Forgive me. There is a caveat to that, isn't
Yeah.
there? That's right. If you're a
You have to-
Muslim, you can do it.
Mostly peaceful blowings up are totally acceptable in London.
Here you're not supposed to be, to get away with that if you're a Muslim. Our Muslim population isn't your population, but
Yet.
Democrats are trying to change that. They are trying to change that. Before you leave, we'll try to burn something and we'll try to blow something up.
I want to shoot an armadillo from a helicopter.
Well, I'm happy for you to shoot armadillos. I'm not sure Ranger would be happy
Why?
about it because he loves to kill them.
Okay.
In other
but
words, you're denying him the hunt and the kill.
where is the biggest population of armadillos
I
local
actually
to
have
here?
to tell you a funny story. The previous owners of this house were big Planned Parenthood people. And they were telling me that, I mean, this again sort of fits with what we were talking about earlier. It's this weird elevation of animals and de-elevation of human life. So I'm okay with killing babies, but I mean, animals would never do that. So the woman was telling me all about how much they loved armadillos when we were moving in here, and I couldn't resist saying, there are armadillos out there? Well, Ranger, my German Shepherd, loves to kill armadillos. And it's actually true. He loves to kill armadillos.
What's his preferred method of attack? Because they're quite armored.
It doesn't matter. When you have jaws like that, God engineered German Shepherds to destroy things if they choose to do it. So the armor is no good, I promise you. I can show you pictures where his teeth have punctured, right through to the armor.
Ranger, we're going to kill some armadillos later.
But generally, a dog like that, what they do is they grab something and they shake it so violently that it just breaks every bone. It's like taking a bag of ice and smashing it. That's what he does. And it just destroys them. But armadillos, troglodytes, pestilence-carrying creatures.
What pestilence they carry? You told me this. Rabies.
Yeah, well, they carry, doggone it, leprosy.
Leprosy.
Leprosy. It's supposedly it's not transmissible to human beings. Apparently not to dogs.
Certainly
but
not to
it's
dogs.
Transmissible to something, and but they're nasty, nasty creatures.
And they burrow under houses.
They
don't
burrow. They make huge. My ranch, they would dig holes. They threaten to break the legs of horses and cattle. Because they make pretty sizable holes. So you send a ranger out into the field, and he does the job. The others you plink with a 22.
What,
It's very strange. You would have fun doing this, but you get into a UTV, you know, like say a Kawasaki Mule.
Yeah.
You go in through a field at night. You need to do it around midnight or later because it's when they come out. And for some reason, they don't run under the headlights. And so you take an AR-15 or a shotgun or a 22 and you shoot them. It's the best time to do it, but you don't want them in your fields because they're a real problem. But we're not actually discussing the problems of the world. Are there questions here?
Yes, there are a few that have come in.
All right, come in. Let's hear it.
Ricky Palmer wants to know, why can't the Supreme Court do anything about the lawfare from our Justice Department? In other words, the corruption.
Well, the Supreme Court isn't a legislative body, and the Supreme Court doesn't do anything but respond to cases that come before the Supreme Court. And so it isn't a case where they look at an election and they go, you know what, we need to stop what's happening there. There's shenanigans happening in an election, or gosh, there are people coming across the board. They're not a legislative body. They're not an executive body. As a judiciary, they can only respond to cases that are brought before them. Now, I don't know what cases have been brought before them that deal with the lawfare of the Justice Department, so I can't really comment on that. But even then, the Supreme Court would only rule on the competence of the case that's being argued. So they can't make the case for an attorney. They can only respond to a case based on the actual legal arguments that are presented before it. Other questions?
All right, Mateo wants to know, what do you think about FEMA confiscating tractor trailers, and they're having to sneak goods into the Carolinas?
I'm laughing because Ranger just went outside to go kill an armadillo. You could hear that door slamming. About FEMA confiscating what now?
Tractor trailers and goods, and truckers are having to sneak it in.
I
think it's terrible. I mean, what do you think, Lawrence? You've seen some of this on Twitter.
Yeah, I've seen the fact that it always blows me away how partisan the FEMA seem to be, that you can apply, you've had your entire state devastated in your own country, but FEMA are more interested in, if you don't vote for the incumbent president, your state doesn't matter. And I think that's, you should govern for all Americans if you're going to govern. So, and the institutions, but I think more broadly our faith in institutions is not high.
No, I don't think so. And you're absolutely right. What we're seeing is our government institutions have been weaponized against the American people. And that's a fairly new thing. I mean, there would be instances of things like that, but now we're seeing it big time. And so the FEMA budget being used to, I think they thought they'd get away with it, that no one would notice. And then what do you know? A hurricane happens. They've got no money. And questions start being asked, well, where is it? Well, we're using it to fly illegals, into the country. So next question.
On that note, how do you think Harris has handled the situation as opposed to Trump?
Well, I mean, terrible.
No one cares what she thinks.
No, and she doesn't think.
She certainly doesn't think, but she politicizing an act of God is never a good idea, and she has turned her back on her own people. That's what she's done.
Okay, well, I mean, we're talking about a party that doesn't actually care about people. One of the arguments that I've made for some time, and probably made it on this show, is that Democrats and the global left as a whole, they don't care about human beings. I mean, they're fundamentally anti-human. They're anti-child, anti-family, anti-human. And it comes out in instances like this. They're only about the acquisition and the preservation of power. That's it. So when somebody is in need, they don't care. What does the effect of a lockdown have on your life? They don't care. Killing the unborn, they love it. I mean, this is who these people are.
They're delightful, aren't they? What you're trying to say is they're delightful.
I'm trying to say they're delightful people.
They're
the
delightful.
kind of people that you want at all your social gatherings.
Well, the kind of people you want in charge of all your institutions,
Yes.
including the most important ones of government.
I don't know that I've ever said this on this show, but I do say it elsewhere, particularly when I'm talking about the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and that is that there's something. Maybe in Britain this would apply because maybe almost everybody is on the left, but it's this weird thing that I've noticed. I have no data for this. It's just observation that leftists by nature target positions of power. I think a conservative mindset is naturally to kind of live and let live. I don't think conservatives as a rule really want to run for public office. I don't think they want to be in charge of the HOA. I don't think they really want to be in charge of the school board, but they end up running for offices like that because they're like, well, if I don't, some lefty's going to screw everything up. But I think a conservative mindset is very different. A conservative gets up in the morning, grabs a coffee, and starts thinking about his day. And leftists get up in the morning, get a cup of coffee, and begin thinking about your day too.
Yeah.
They can't stand the thought that you might be free.
Yes.
That you might not be wearing a mask, that you might be in the backyard enjoying your family, that maybe you didn't exterminate your children before they were born. I mean, that's the way leftists are, and it just seems to me that when it comes to every kind of institution, they think in terms of, I want to tell other people what to do, and that's not a conservative mindset. Do you find that in Britain, or is it just everybody's already on the left anyway?
No. I mean, the whole inversion of what's happened here has happened in the UK too. So the Labour Party, who were invented, as you can imagine, to represent the labourers, now just represents rich people and vested interests. And I just watched that bass boat going past at, God knows how fast, 70 miles an hour. And you get a sense that the guy has just finished his day at work, or he's come to the end of a long shift, and he's heading out to his favourite little fishing hole, and he wants to be left alone, which I imagine is why Alabama is popular and
gaining in popularity,
and one of the more wouldn't reasonably be described as a swing state.
No, we don't have very many swingers in Alabama.
Not enough.
It's not a swinging state.
Do you swing in Alabama?
No.
I haven't seen any pampas grass out here.
No, I haven't.
So I
haven't, but we did talk about it in our earlier episode of some of the WTF merchandise that we're going to put out there. And
we did.
I don't know if any of it is related to swinging, but...
It should be. It should be about Tim Waltz swinging his shotgun barrel round
barrel
to his own crotch.
I'm not sure he has a shotgun.
No, don't be like that.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But we did discuss earlier a little bit about his use of a shotgun, or his dangerous use of a shotgun. When did you learn to shoot?
I learned to shoot on a film.
Really?
Yeah.
What film was that? Gosford Park?
Gosford Park.
And so what did that look like? They bring out an instructor and...
Yeah, they but as you quite rightly pointed out yesterday when we were shooting, it's about instinct. You don't pull the trigger too late.
Yeah.
Shoot when you feel it's the right time to shoot, and you tend to be, if you've got a half decent eye, you tend to hit or be on or whereabouts the animal you're aiming at, or the clay pigeon in this case that you're aiming at. So I learned to shoot on a film, and then I got invited. No, that's not true. I learned to shoot on the Earl of Besborough's shoot, which my friend...
The Earl of what?
Earl of Besborough. And you want to talk about how communist Britain is? He gave his huge house, because he couldn't afford to heat it, essentially. Yeah. He gave it to what's called the National Trust. I'm sure there's an American equivalent, where you preserve historic monuments. Yeah. In America's case, anything over 5 years old. Yeah. But in the United
when the state of Alabama became a state?
When?
1819.
Right, okay.
So it goes to show you how young we are as a country. City of Birmingham didn't become incorporated until 1871, I think.
My grandfather would have been at school. So yeah, we have. They give the house over to the National Trust. National Trust looks after houses, and I went there on their shoot, which they're still allowed to do because it's their land and stuff. But I wasn't allowed to walk across the drive with the Earl. They were like, "You're not allowed to walk here," and I'm like, "He's the Earl," and the Earl is going, please don't make a fuss. Please don't make a fuss." They heat the house. They make sure that the paintings don't get damp rot and rot to the ground. So the National Trust have become one of the wokest institutions in the United Kingdom. And there's a campaign called the Restore Trust, because now you go to the National Trust house, it goes, "This is a picture of the British countryside painted by John Constable." And then underneath, and the new tag go, "He was a horrible white supremacist, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah,
of
blah."
course.
So it's, they're trying to erase our history in their Orwellian 1984.
Does anybody live in these houses?
Some do. He's not a friend, but he was a friend from school who was the Duke of Euston. So he collects all the rents on and around the area of Euston in London, which, for anyone who's been to London, is a pretty big area, a pretty rich area. So he still has the money to be able to run his country house, but it's quite a lonely life for him, because he went from wanting to be a musician, and he's a talented musician, to now having to run this huge country estate. And his wife reliably informs me that he spends most evenings with a guitar amp plugged in the grand ballroom, drinking bottles of 1996 Chateau Lafite, getting slowly drunk. It's a lesson in the fact that money doesn't always provide happiness.
Well, that's one of the lessons you'll learn today on WTF. Questions?
Okay, we're switching over to elections. Some folks want to know, what are your thoughts on the riots and the danger we're going into if Trump wins?
What do you think?
Well, we've just had some riots in England.
Will there be riots if Trump wins in England?
No, but there will be riots in England for different reasons. The riots are going to happen between the election result and Inauguration Day, aren't they?
Yep.
That's what's going to happen. So it's November to January that America is looking at trouble. I have a feeling that for the amount of effort they've put in, one can criticize their effort in assassin choice. Come on.
Yeah.
Quite reasonably say, you could have picked some better assassins, guys. But they will, I think they'll try and set fire to, will it work though? If you go to another poor, impoverished city and set fire to it, is that going to help, or is that just going to make more people pro-Trump? What do you think?
Well,
Kamala's certainly not going to come out and bail out all of the arsonists, is she, this time round?
No, I think it will just make more people pro-Trump. It'll make, or certainly anti-Democrat. Democrats have badly overplayed their hand. I think they have been so arrogant. They've become so open about their agenda. They become, all that they've done with FEMA, as we were just talking about, going into an election, you would think that they would pull out all the stops to just lavish devastated areas with federal assistance. And they've done exactly the opposite. You think they would pull out all of the stops to say, we're not permitting these things that are going on in these cities where these Haitians are taking over, or Venezuelans, or whoever it is, taking over these apartment complexes.
It's only a small number of apartment complexes.
Exactly. You would think that at least for a few months that they would do that to try to appear tough on crime, and they've done exactly the opposite. And that's because they are arrogant. They're incredibly arrogant. But see, yesterday we had Democrats come out, or maybe it was the day before that, come out and say that they are not going to certify the election results if Trump wins. This shows you how desperate they are. The Constitution matters not at all. The rule of law matters not at all. These are not people who care about anything other than power. The rest of it is all just window dressing.
Well, at least you've got a constitution. So,
Yeah, well, yes, there is that, but It's just a piece of paper. And regarding pieces of paper, I think it was Friedrich von Bernhardi who spoke of a treaty in that language. He said it's but a paper bulwark, and what he was referring to is treaties mean nothing. We'll invade Belgium and France anyway. And they did. So, the Constitution is only as good as the strength that we give it. And it's right now is the only thing that really stands between us and Democrats. And by that I mean free speech, chiefly, and the Second Amendment. And they want to end both.
Yeah.
They absolutely want to end both. Hence the reason I've been saying to people for quite some time, you need to be ready for the potential meltdown that's coming. I would suggest that people do take a course in the proper use of a firearm so that if they need to, they can use it competently and confidently.
Against
that they own one. Well, I mean, listen, I would advise, if you lived here in the Reagan years, I would tell you need to have a firearm, not because you should expect to be broken into your home or anything to that effect, or that you should expect a violent crime to be committed against your person or someone you love, but just in case. I mean, to me, I just think as a provider, as a father, as a husband, I have a responsibility to take the protection of my family and my possessions very seriously. And that means the Second Amendment.
And
I have a conceal and carry permit, so I do conceal and carry.
I know you do. When I shot your little truck gun, it shoots a little low to the left for any criminals.
He shoots a little low and to the left.
No, well, he shot low to the left too. So for any criminals out there who are going for Larry,
go to the right.
Jump high and right. If you want to remove his Land Rover Defender from his present. But I'm interested in the idea of what an amendment is, because an amendment sounds like it wasn't something they thought straight away. They had to amend the Constitution.
Well, the Constitution may be amended through the state legislatures, but it's a very tedious and difficult process, and hence the reason it doesn't happen frequently. Meaning that if you wanted to change the Constitution and you want to say, hey, people shouldn't have guns, there is a means of doing that. Democrats don't want to go that route because they know they can't go that route. So they want to use the judiciary and kind of legislate through the judiciary and to create a kind of judicial oligarchy, is what Robert Bork, called it, and that's exactly what they've tried to do. So that, again, using lawfare, the President of the United States issues let's say an executive order saying we're closing the border. They want to find a federal judge who will say, that the President of the United States can't do that. This is the way they think. But as it regards, weapons, I just think that it's important that you have them. I don't think the things that are happening in your country so rapidly would be happening.
Oh, they wouldn't.
If people were armed. Our violent crime is...
New figures. Pete Buttigieg got them wrong.
I'm sorry?
Pete Buttigieg, Buttigieg, sorry.
Okay.
Announced that the crime figures were vastly down, and then the FBI released the crime figures, and he'd made a mistake. He'd identified non-crimes as crimes as non-crimes.
Well, I think it's Twain who said there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics.
Yes.
So I don't believe the statistics in the first place. I mean, it's like the polls going into the presidential election. I mean, how many of those are reliable? I would venture almost none of them are reliable. Like, I don't think this is a close race. I think that Trump wins in a landslide. It's just, again, whether or not that's actually announced. But
what's the October said? But Trump, it seems the October surprises were always built around trying to damage the Republican.
Yeah.
But these October surprises have all been engineered by the Democrats to damage themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit confused.
It does look a little bit like that, doesn't it?
Are they committing harikiri? Are they just becoming kamikaze
well,
pilots?
I think we have a tendency. I mean, I think you'll agree with me when I say this. We have a tendency to talk about Democrats or the left or Republicans, the right, as a monolith, right? And
Yeah.
they're not. And as we were talking about on an episode of WTF that has yet to air but will air this Friday, we're seeing cracks, in the, they're not all, in lockstep with each other. They all have there's several who have their own agendas. And sensing that Kamala might lose, I think there's some who are like rats getting off a sinking ship. I do think we're seeing some of that.
While
but
biting her on the way out.
Yep, exactly. So, Clinton's comments about illegal immigration, that is Bill Clinton's comments in Georgia where he's wearing the camo hat, that didn't feel to me like he was trying to help Kamala Harris. Biden clearly has been taking his own shots at her and wants to sink her campaign, but while pretending not to.
But he was very fast. Biden was the quickest to endorse her. So that was revenge, right?
That was revenge to prevent, because he knew that Obama wanted an open convention. Obama tweeted that, and he sank that by coming straight out and giving his endorsement to Kamala Harris. And Obama really had no choice at that point. So interestingly enough, Joe Biden outmaneuvered Obama when it comes to that. But again, I think we shouldn't assume that they're monolithic, because they aren't, because it's obvious that there's some dissension in the ranks.
Did you see the footage in the church of, is it RFK's mum who died?
Yes, it is.
And they're all there, and it literally looks like an episode of Goodfellas. And Biden...
Really? I haven't seen this.
Yeah, Biden, for once, looks like... I mean, he always looks like a slightly startled, horny puppy. But he, for once, he was talking to Obama, and Obama looked like he was listening, which was quite interesting to watch.
That is interesting to watch. I'll have to watch that. See that. We'll have to see if we can find a
also
lip
that
reader who can tell us what he's saying.
Will be lip reading it. I mean, Joe may be going, do they have an ice cream? I like ice cream.
Are there any little girls around that I could sniff?
I like ice cream.
There's no telling. Question.
All right, kind of the same thing you're talking about. Pam says, I thought there were laws pertaining to voting. Why are these not being upheld? Has the Constitution already been taken away?
Well, we've kind of touched on that. The Constitution hasn't been taken away. The Constitution is still, being enforced in sporadically, across the country. This is where we find ourselves: is that we have red states that are respecting the Constitution, blue states that, in many instances, are not respecting the Constitution, and thus not respecting election law.
Hang on, life, liberty, and the pursuit of any property less than the value of $950. That's the Constitution, man. I'm moving to California.
Yeah, well, that's where we find ourselves.
$950 a day I could be making.
We're not there yet, where the Constitution is completely irrelevant. We will be there if Democrats remain in power.
And you'll have
If
4
Democrats
new
remain in
Democratic
power.
senators from Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C.
Yep, that's the plan. So let us pray that doesn't happen. But I'm optimistic. I'm pretty optimistic, and I'm loving this weather. I love this weather. Maybe you were hoping you were going to come and it's going to be blazing hot,
Man,
but it has been
have you
very
been to
warm.
England in October? Do you know what England's like in October?
I live there, but it's been a while.
It's not fun.
October can have some beautiful days in London.
Oh, we
In fact, they can be spectacular days in London.
yeah, we also
What
have
did I
a
say earlier?
spectacular.
Something like that.
Yeah, you sounded like Anchorman reading the auto cue. No, England has this.
Kensington Park on a nice day.
I'm really sorry. Are you trying to convince me anything nice about London? Just for our American friends, if you're thinking about that once in a lifetime trip to go and see where the cradle of democracy began and all that sort of stuff, go to Kabul. It's safer.
There's a funny meme, and I haven't been able to find it. I wish I had taken a screenshot of it, but it showed Beefeaters, and it said what Americans think Britain really is, and then the next one shows a mob of Muslims setting things on fire, and it says what Britain really is.
Well, you don't.
And
have
I thought that's pretty accurate. I can honestly say this. I think I've told you this before. London used to be my favorite city in the world, and I'm talking 30 years ago.
Me too.
It used to be my favorite city in the world, and I probably noticed the differences in a way that you don't, because I'm back 2 or 3 times a year probably in London over the course of the last 30 years, and I can see the changes. And where now I go London, I'm just like, do I have to go to London? I don't want to go to London.
Yeah, all the lights are on, but nobody's home. It's got that beautiful architecture, the Regency. You know, the
The
idea.
only sensible people are black cab drivers anymore.
Yes, Calvin Robinson, who everyone should follow, is he maintains that the only people who should be allowed to vote in London are black cab drivers.
Best taxi drivers in the world.
Yeah,
The old school guys are great.
They're forced to complete something called the knowledge.
It's
So
incredible
they
what
have
those
to
guys
learn
have to go
something.
through.
They don't get to stick it in Google, even though some of them now do, especially the ones that swap cabs and they, you know.
The old school guys, the guys that have been around for a long time, they are the best taxi drivers in the world. Do not take Uber in London if it's legal. I don't even know if it's legal. I know there's some discussion over that. But black cab drivers are a lot of fun, and whenever I get in one of their taxis, I ask them, who's the most famous person you ever had in your taxi? And I get great stories just about every time, particularly if they're older.
Just about me.
No.
What?
But
What?
I've had great stories about Judi Dench,
This is live. You
Charlton
can't cut
Heston,
that out.
Laurence Olivier, Tony Blair, Alice Cooper. My favorite story, there's one I recently heard about Richard Harris, which I thought was very funny. And maybe my favorite one was about Charlie Watt.
Oh yeah, I know the Charlie Watt one.
The one about Richard Harris, I got to tell you, that you guys will enjoy this. The one about Richard Harris, this guy said, I pick up Richard Harris, and he wants me to drive him to this estate in the countryside. And he says, he's friendly, he's chatting with me. And I said, so where are we going? And he tells me, and he says, it's the home of director so-and-so. And he says, and I'm going to see about a part. And he says, and what's this? And he says, a part I don't want. And he says, it's about some little shit named Harry Potter. And he had not read the books. But he said he had turned down the part. But his granddaughter found out that he had turned down the part. And he says, the only reason I'm going to go and do this because my granddaughter insisted that I be in it.
Those are the best sort of actors.
That is a great story.
But those are the best sort of actors, the ones that are just like, okay, how much for how long and when? When? Because, you know, actors have this view that they change the world.
Yeah.
And you know, on very rare occasions they do. But, oh, that's my phone. On very rare occasions they do. But in the majority of cases they don't. And it's great when actors realize the insignificance of their own role. And they just go, when an actor falls into the how much, when, and how long, those are the actors that are beautiful because they put all of their effort into the time between action and cut.
Well, and I thought that was a pretty funny story. And I had another guy tell me he had Richard Harris, 40 years ago. And he said he just laid in the back of his cab with his feet propped on my window, smoking weed and telling me to drive him around.
Yeah, I mean...
That's good. Another question.
Yeah, we have one here that is, can we get back to where we were before the Biden administration? And how long might it take? And will it take a miracle?
Well, I'll start with this one. I don't think so. And yes, it would take a miracle because the 20 million illegals who are in this country, supposedly, it's 20 million. I think it's more than that. I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle. I don't know if Trump, even if he takes office, whether he'll have the political will to try to deport them. Again, he's lame duck. He may decide that he wants to precisely for that reason. You heard J.D. Vance recently say in an interview, if you're an illegal, pack your bags, which I was really surprised that he said that. Will they do it? I'm just thinking from a logistical standpoint how you go about doing that.
Well, they locked the entire Western world down for several units of time, because of a cold. So
Yeah, but I mean, where are you
one-
sending them? Like Venezuela says they're not going to take any of them back.
Well, I'm sorry, you got to send them back.
I mean, what are we going to do? We going to fly a plane over their airspace and push them out? I mean, I'm not sure what that looks like, but I do hope that they do address the illegal immigration issue. And I think, as you know, I've spent a lot of time south of the border, at least 10 trips in Central and South America, investigating this issue, engaging with a lot of these people. Other than the Afghans and the Somalis and so on that they're flying into the country, I'm generally of the opinion, as I said to you yesterday, that our illegal immigrants are better than yours because they're generally coming from a broadly Catholic background. A lot of them are fleeing socialism, know what it is, and want nothing to do with it. I think Republican messaging has to change regarding them because I think that most of these people are not naturally Democrats. I mean, listen, anybody who will go without government assistance, I know some of them are getting government assistance, but most are not, who will, and I've watched them do it. I mean, I've been there, I've seen it, that you'll watch a woman enter into the Darien Gap wearing flip-flops, a pair of athletic shorts, and carrying a baby and a bottle of water. You're going, holy smokes. Anybody who will do that all the way to the U.S. border, this is not a Democrat work ethic. That's not who these people are. And and I'm speaking in generalities. Obviously, some of them are criminals, but they're not all criminals.
By that logic, then California will probably turn red at some point.
Well, not the way they're doing it. I mean, because they're obviously giving them free money, and just just about anybody's going to take free money when it's given to them. But I'm just simply saying that the messaging needs to change regarding these people because many of them are individuals who, listen, there's a local taco truck that I love that I'm going to take you to. Guy, Mexican, come to this country, succeeding. He owns a taco truck. The guy works 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. His wife, the same. They work very, very hard. Their children, they have working in the business. He's now bought a second taco truck. That taco truck is flourishing. He's looking at getting another one. He's a great guy. I like him an awful lot. Those are the kind of immigrants we want. They're people who are seizing the American dream with both hands. What they want is government out of their way and give them the opportunities to succeed. A lot of people who are coming across the border fall into that category. But the messaging of Democrats is we're the ones who actually love you. Republicans don't. They don't care. We care about you. And Democrats don't care about them. They want to make cynical use of them. And for very nefarious reasons, and somehow that messaging has to change. But anyway, back to the guy's question. I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle.
I do. Well, in England, I think it's different because we're not importing people from a broadly Catholic.
No, yours is a Muslim issue.
Yeah,
and I don't want any Muslims.
We have this. There's this thing that goes on in the UK where they call Israel a settler colonialist.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Thing. And I'm like, have you seen a map of the world and where the settler colonialists come from? So,
well, they've invaded Europe once. When people bring up the Crusades, I like to point out there's a question of chronology here. 300 years prior to the Crusades, the Muslims had already invaded Europe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were quite patient, actually.
Halfway through Spain.
Before, yes, they were quite patient. Well, they dominated Spain from 711 until, 1453. So, yes, absolutely true. And that's forgotten. That's history that's not being taught. And we're talking about an alien culture. I mean, it's alien to a Western mentality. It's alien to Western values. It has no place in the West. And I'm not talking about, again, I want to be clear, it's not a racist remark. Islam is a religion, it's not a race. And Islam, I'm not even talking about those fuzzy people who call themselves Muslims but are actually have been thoroughly westernized and they're somehow vaguely culturally Muslim, but they're not really Muslims because they don't take the life of Muhammad seriously, which they're supposed to model their lives after. They don't read the Hadith, don't want to read the Quran because they know what it says. and they know that it's violent and it frightens them, and they want to stay away from them. I'm not saying that every Muslim is a terrorist or would be terrorist. I'm saying that that culture, what we call radicals, are actually Orthodox Muslims. They're not radicals. They're Orthodox Muslims. And those
Which
who
is
take
what-
their faith seriously are dangerous.
Which is why you don't get that in England. The appeal is always after every atrocity. There's always the appeal like, where are the moderate Muslims to
Yeah, of
sit to
course.
sit there
It's
and,
ridiculous.
and condemn
I've
the
debated
actions? And they sit there and they go, well, there aren't any, because they know that these people are the extremist element of Islam is actually sticking true to the book.
Have I ever told you that? I don't think I've told you this. That I've debated them several times in Hyde Park, like hundreds of them. Have you ever been to Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park with
they
the Muslims there?
love me there.
Okay, and I go there with a friend of mine, Jay Smith, who's an expert at this. This is what he does, and he brings the ladders, and we get up on the ladders and we take them on, and hundreds will gather around. And these are people who will threaten you. They'll bump up against you. I mean, that's where the real ones are. And so years ago, CNN International called me and said, hey, would you be willing to debate a Muslim? And I was pretty excited because I thought, yes, CNN International, based out of London, they're going to get a real Muslim. I mean, a real fire breather. Who, you know what they brought on? They brought on a hippie, former Baptist Muslim convert from the hills of North Carolina, a woman who had no idea. She was basically making Christian arguments all the way through. And the topic that we were debating was free speech. And she kept saying that Muslims believe in free speech. I said, name for me a country, an Islamic state, where there is free speech, where church bells ring out. Name one for me. And of course,
They're
they
in
can't.
short supply.
But I thought, isn't this interesting that CNN has millions of Muslims at their disposal, easy to get one. CNN International, based in London, and what do? They go and get
Well,
a Baptist convert to Islam,
the Democrats
a
have,
hippie.
the Democrats had millions of Democrats to choose from to be their presidential candidate, and they chose Kamala.
That's because they want someone who will do what they're told, who will read the script. They just didn't know she was so stupid that she can't read. They thought she could read a teleprompter, and then they discovered she. Did you see, by the way, the video? It's a great video where she's on what's it called? The Spanish station. Univision. Thank you. She's on Univision, and it's supposed to be like a town hall that's totally, extemporized, and a camera is behind her and shows that she's reading a teleprompter, and then a camera in front of her shows someone behind her. Did you see this? This is brilliant. Who is lip syncing the same thing that she's saying because that person is reading the teleprompter too. It's brilliant. It's a great visual of seeing that. They just didn't know that Kamala Harris actually can't read.
Bless her. What a
She is
star.
dumb.
She's not.
I mean, she's colossally dumb.
She's not smart enough to be dumb. You've got to be.
You guys have to think on that one a little bit. Next question.
Well, Maria Cook says, Larry, is your future so bright you have to wear shades?
No, but the sun is going down right there. And as a colorblind man, I am hypersensitive to white light.
He's oppressed. He's oppressed by colors.
I'm actually, my eyes are bloodshot because he kept me up drinking all night, and I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm hungover.
He had one glass of
It's a
Prosecco.
joke. It's actually not true. It is a joke. I had what did I have? A glass of
You
Prosecco.
had one glass of Prosecco. I wanted to ask you whether you were going to come out later. Whether you were going to say, look, it's all a mistake. I love guys.
Yeah, I just had,
And
Prosecco
I want to
was
go
nice.
hunting with Tim Waltz alone.
I definitely don't want to go hunting with Tim Waltz alone. He will pull a Dick Cheney on me.
Oh, he would
But
let
I
me
don't
pull.
want that to happen. But Prosecco, I learned to like Prosecco because I spent so much time in Rome. And one of the restaurants there that I like, a restaurant that has adopted me. I do a lot of my work there, a lot of my writing there. They almost never charge me. But in the evening, right about this time, they will just bring a complimentary Prosecco to my table. And I thought, well, I have to be polite and drink this. And then I'm like, you know what? I kind of like it. I like Prosecco. Here's a little tidbit for you. Did you know that champagne, they have to add the bubbles to them. They have to add the carbonation. Prosecco is natural.
Is it?
It is.
Both give me the worst migraine in the world, and both make me suicidal. So I don't drink either.
Really?
Yeah, I don't touch.
So you were telling me that like drinking scotch or, bourbon, doesn't do that to you.
No, that's fine.
But drinking a champagne does. Is it the carbonation that does that?
I have no idea what it is. I think it's probably the sugar. But I mean, if I
He
go
doesn't
to,
eat cheese either.
if I go to a canapes party and drink a load of prosecco, the next day I'll be on the phone to
I've
Justin
never been
Trudeau
to
asking for an appointment with Maid.
party. I've never been to a canapes party.
Well, sorry, it's because you're a redneck.
Yes, I've never been. I've never been. Please invite me to it. What is a canapé anyway?
Well, a canapé is like a tiny bit of food that you don't want to, it's like...
So like, what would we say, like a tapas?
Well,
Something like
it's
that.
just a person walking around with a tray...
Hors d'oeuvres.
Hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
With herbs.
Why don't you just call them hors d'oeuvres?
Because...
Divorce.
There
What?
you go. Why don't I call them hors d'oeuvres? Why call it a
Horse
canapé? Canapé, it sounds like a gay word.
Well,
Are there words that are gay? Because it sounds gay.
It says the guy that drinks
It sounds like one that you'd
Prosecco...
have your little pinky in the air. I'll have a canapé, please.
Sounds
Sounds like something Tim Waltz would attend.
You need to go on a anti-racist bus stop party with Pete Buttigieg to Buttigieg.
I dare say that if I were to throw a canapé party here in Alabama, it would not be well attended. This is red. This is a red state. It's red meat, and it's still pretty alpha male.
Yeah.
So please, if you do decide to move here, if you send an invitation with a canapé party on
I'll be
it, that
moving
is a
with
major social faux pas.
I'll be
and I'm not
moving with
coming.
my trans husband, Lilibet.
Next question.
Eve of the West says, call our military home from Ukraine and round up the illegals.
Well, I will say this, the globalists, it's not just Democrats, they do recognize everything they have on the line with this election, that the war in Ukraine will be coming to an end. If Trump takes office, it will be coming to an end. The flow of money to Ukraine, that's their laundry machine right there. I mean, that's where they're laundering their money. It will be coming to an
Talk us
end.
through the laundering of money.
Well, I think...
Because what they're doing is they're selling old weapon stock to Ukraine so they
Yes.
can build new stuff for themselves. Is that right?
Yeah, and they're sending billions there that aren't making it... Maybe I told you this.
Why
maybe
would
I
you
didn't.
send billions of dollars to another country?
Because it's not all going to that country.
It's coming back to people's
It's coming back into politicians' pockets. It's got to be. Listen, when I was in South America, Central America, watching, just over the past 5 years, for instance, the first time I went down there to investigate, follow these migrant caravans, was I think in 2019, and it was an ad hoc operation at that time. Having just come back in whatever it was, March or something, just before you were here in May, I was down there and again looking at this. And what I have noticed over the course of 5 years is it's become a highly efficient, well-oiled, moneyed machine. Now, the question becomes, where's the money coming from? Well, we've just learned some of it's come out of the FEMA budget. You have people who are saying, well, it's George Soros. George Soros doesn't have this kind of money. George Soros isn't Elon Musk. He's nowhere in the same category of money as he's Mark Cuban money. He's not Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates kind of money. He can't fund this. This is money that's coming out, I believe. My theory is that it's money that's going to Ukraine that is then coming back into the pockets of politicians to fund globalist projects, the biggest of which is this human trafficking op, which is what it is. The Biden administration has been running the biggest human trafficking operation in the world. And I thought it was funny because you've seen the funny picture of me with Theresa May, that came up last night. But I don't know if I told you what it was I was talking to her about, because she was giving a lecture to not much bigger than this porch. It was a small gathering, maybe 30 people were there listening to her speak, along with the former president of Portugal and Princess Eugenie and some other people. And they were talking about what they were doing to end human trafficking. And she was talking about Ukrainians coming into Poland, refugees, war refugees, and that they were being trafficked in Poland. Well, I had just come from Poland and the Ukrainian border. I mean, I've been to Ukraine probably 10 times. I've been there a lot. So when I call it a shithole, I know what I'm talking about. And I've just been in Poland. And so when I went up there to talk to her, I said, you know, have you been there? Probably the only person in the whole room who'd been in both Ukraine and Poland and has spoken to these refugees that she says are being trafficked. Once they get into Poland, they're being trafficked. I said, they're being trafficked in Ukraine. I mean, that's what the Grace Effect is in part about.
Yeah.
The human trafficking operation in Ukraine. But their mentality is such that either A, she's just a figurehead. People like her. She's not been there, doesn't see, doesn't know. She just reads off the script that they've given to her. And she claims that all this stuff is wonderful. Or that they do know. Because Ukraine is theirs, not just a place to launder their money, it is their human trafficking hub. And see, what a lot of people don't understand about human trafficking is that the appetites of these globalists generally do not involve black children or black people at all. So they're, you know, you say, well, why isn't the massive human trafficking operation being run out of Africa into Europe? That's happening too. But what they want, the taste of these people is that they want these Ukrainian girls. And now, because of how perverse our society's become, Ukrainian boys. And that's what's happening in these orphanages. And the war offers them a golden opportunity for children to just disappear.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
I can't bear it.
Anyway, I'm sorry I went on a little bit too much
No,
about
but
that.
it ties into the question, which is end the war in Ukraine and get rid of the illegals, yeah.
Maybe one more question before we wrap up. Let this guy go take a nap. He's got jet lag.
Tell us what's on the agenda for the fun this week with Lauren.
Well, we've just been saying we're shooting things. We'll find something we can set on fire, something we can blow up. Lizzie's already been swimming and enjoying the beautiful lake. This is one of Alabama's smaller lakes, and by small I mean it has 300 miles of coastline. But a lot of Alabama's lakes, you know, are much, much bigger than that. We're pretty close to the coast, actually. The beautiful Alabama beach. Maybe on another occasion, we'll go down there and enjoy that. We're going to enjoy some of the honky tonks in Nashville. Nashville's not that far a drive for us, so we'll do that. Introducing them, some of my friends that are coming this evening. But I think for the most part, what I want this to be is I don't really want to bring Lawrence over here for him to come over here and that we do tons of work. But that for the most part, it's a time that he can relax, that Lizzie can relax, that they can just enjoy the beauty of God's creation in a place where you have some anonymity and people pretty much leave you alone. And that for me, anyways. Maybe you sleep late. What's that?
Well, yeah, I can't sleep late because of the jet lag.
You will.
But,
I'll give you drugs tonight. Powerful drugs.
Oh yeah, I want some of your drugs that you've got for your 400 broken bones bike accident, which you sort of recover from.
Give you some of those, you'll not be seen or heard from again. But is that what you want it to be when you're here, just to relax, chill?
Yeah, I'd like to be here and absorb Americanism because it's a real thing, which is the pride that people take in being from this country. You know, in England, we're told that basically, you know, the narrative on the television is that anyone who's black in America is still a slave. That's what we're told.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then we meet the woman from the military, former military woman this morning, who is who's working as a private nurse. And, you know, the interactions between everyone is very, race doesn't seem to come into it. That's not to say that there aren't places in Alabama. Corey was telling me about some towns and areas in Alabama which are pretty edgy, but I like to dispel the rumor that, you know, that America is some racist hellhole, which is what we're told.
It's not true.
all the time.
If there are wicked people, human nature is human nature, and there are evil people
everywhere,
anywhere in the world who will mistreat you, and skin color might just be an excuse for doing it. And sometimes somebody might just mistreat you just because they don't like you, and you assume that it's because you're white and they're black, or vice versa. But it is what it is. But we're going to relax. We're going to have a good time, enjoy ourselves. Today's been a busy day.
Yeah.
And then we've got guests coming this evening. But it's been a pleasure to be with all of you on this live edition of WTF. Take us out of here.
Thank you for having me, America, and making me jealous of...
Joining our canapé party.
Shut up. He's going off for an afternoon shooting with Tim Waltz. They're not going to take any guns. They're just going to take 2 bottles of baby oil, and
Fat chance of that.
it's going to be a great time. So thank you for having me and reminding me what freedom feels like.